There's a couple brand new Nintendo Switch news stories we need to talk about today, starting with a update around the ongoing and very hard to track down N64 NSO Controller, as there is now more frequent restocks happening. Then the big talking point for today's video is a question that I think a lot of people were wondering, myself included, around how Nintendo would be handling future DLC packs on mainline games going forward with Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pack. And today at the Xenoblade Direct, we did finally get that question answered, and we have to talk about what this means for the broader picture of the future of NSO going forward. What's up, Nation? If it's your first time on the channel, make sure you join Sunbro Nation by subscribing below, hit the like button on this video if you enjoy it today, and make sure you turn on your bell notification icon so you're kept up to date with all the newest gaming news. Now, as mentioned, guys, we got a couple different big stories to unpack today, and we have to kick it off with an update around the N64 controller stock situation, as if you're not familiar with what's been going on with this, since Nintendo Switch Online Plus Expansion Pack launch, we have had a very hard time tracking down these controllers. I was lucky enough to pick up one on the initial drop and have not been able to secure any additional ones for multiplayer reasons on NSO locally, and it's like, I'm grateful I have the one, because you know, you can't really easily remap the buttons in any way on the Pro controller, and while it doesn't bother some people, it definitely is a pain point for reliving some of these classic N64 games, because clearly if you look at the design of the N64 controller and the button layout, it is extremely different than modern day Pro controllers or even the GameCube controller. So it's not just a simple one-to-one experience for many of these games, and while you can remap the buttons in the Nintendo Switch system settings, that also makes things confusing for navigating the menus. It needs to be built into the emulator, and hopefully one day Nintendo wakes up and actually builds that in a future update where we can just easily remap the button controls directly in the application itself. However, until then, a lot of people have been wanting to track down the N64 Nintendo Switch Online controller, and why the stock is so short on this particular one, I do not personally understand. I mean, we're coming up on a year now of the expansion pack being available and sold as an option, and if I'm not mistaken, we've had the initial stock launch drop and then now two different restocks that have happened since then, potentially three. I may be missing one in there, but that's at least in the North American region. It may be different in other parts of the world, but you know it's a problem when a $50 retail controller, which is already a hefty price, is being sold for $100 plus on eBay, and local people that can get it to you faster even have it upwards of $150, $180, and these things are selling at that price because there's so much demand for this controller that Nintendo is not meeting. However, if you are somebody who's been looking for this thing the whole time, it does appear that right now there are more frequent updates happening around it than ever. Unfortunately, as soon as these things go up, they also get sold out, so they are not by any means meeting the demands of the consumers. But we do now have two different dates really close to each other that actually happened with restocks, as you had June 15th. You can see Wario64 over on Twitter sharing that it was back in stock June 15th at 1:30 p.m. And then most recently, yesterday, Video Game Deals tweeted out Nintendo 64 controller for Switch is back in stock via Nintendo Store, and that was at 6:18 a.m. at least my time here in Central Time Zone. So maybe Nintendo is finally hitting that point with production where they are going to start fulfilling more of these orders and more people can finally start to get their hands on it. So if you are somebody who is looking for this, I would suggest you guys to actually follow these retail stock tracking accounts over on Twitter, because as I mentioned, every time these controllers do go back up for sale, they're immediately sold out again. So if you want to have a fighting chance at securing one at retail price directly from Nintendo, why they don't partner with retailers and sell these things in Walmarts and Targets and just mass produce them, I don't know, but the Nintendo Store is literally the only way to purchase it at retail price, and you have to be around when one of those stock drops happens. So follow Wario64 on Twitter, follow Video Game Deals. I'll have them linked down in the description below under the sources section of the description, so check that out if you are interested in trying to get one of these controllers for yourself. And let me know if you think like me, like, well, one, obviously there's a chip shortage situation, but I don't think that that's really directly affecting the stock of this controller. I think Nintendo just grossly underestimated the kind of demand that would be around it. But do you think we should have options to remap our current controllers in the NSO N64 app? Because I definitely feel like that would be a very nice quality of life feature when you have something like a very unique button layout that the N64 controller controller has that really doesn't have any counterparts of controllers that have ever come close to that type of design. Like, yes, you can buy third-party N64 controllers, but there's definitely never been another controller like that that's ever been made in any console generation. So I think we need to see some updated controller support from Nintendo on this. I'm hopeful that we will do it soon, and hopefully we will get that option for people who either can't get the N64 controller while it's sold out, don't want to pay scalper prices, or just don't want to spend the $50 to begin with. Hopefully we get that button remapping built into the emulator in the future. But I want to hear from you guys on all things on this ongoing Nintendo 64 controller situation, and whether or not you are still looking for one personally in the comments down below. Now, the other story we're talking about today has to do with some brand new information that has been revealed at the latest Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Focus Direct that did indeed take place earlier today, and a big question that was answered, at least for me personally, and I know for many of you also, as we've talked about it numerous times on the channel, and that is, what will Nintendo do with Nintendo Switch Online and their first-party DLC packs going forward? As so far, since the service is launched, we of course originally had the inclusion of the Animal Crossing DLC thrown in as a selling point to help justify that $50 annual price point. Then later on, we got the announcement of the Mario Kart Booster Course Pass being added in, and that's another major first-party Nintendo title that just got that new DLC thrown into the expansion pack. Then they even took an old DLC pack like the Splatoon 2 expansion and included that in as well, meaning that 3 different mainline Nintendo franchises have gotten DLC packs thrown in. And a question that we've discussed numerous times is, will this happen with mainline games like Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 in the future? And does Nintendo really just include all of their major first-party franchises, any future planned DLC for those games included in the expansion pack to help building the value? And we did see some brand new information at the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Direct, which, by the way, that game is looking, if you are an action RPG fan, like, this is one you're going to need to check out. It looks incredible. The combat system looks very complex and something that I am ready to dive into and get immersed in. And I was definitely hyped coming out of that event overall. And as somebody who hasn't historically kept up with all of the Xenoblade releases, I personally can say that I will be picking this up day one at release on July 29th. But to get on the same page with what was revealed around the title and the exact expansion pass roadmap that was laid out for it, let's quickly hop over to VGC and read through their detailed typed up article together. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 $30 expansion pass includes new story content. The DLC will not be available to purchase separately. Priced at $29.99, it will include 4 waves of DLC, which Nintendo said won't be available to purchase individually. Arriving alongside the game on July 29th, the first wave will include a selection of helpful items and outfit color variants. The second wave, which will be released by December 31st, will include Challenge Battle, a new hero character, and quests and new outfits. The third wave, which will launch by April 30th, 2023, will also include Challenge Battle, a new hero character, quests, and new outfits. The fourth wave, arriving by December 31st, 2023, will introduce a brand new story scenario. The expansion pass was announced at the end of a 20-minute Xenoblade Chronicles 3 presentation. It includes new information on the game's plot and profiles of its 6 main characters. So I think it's pretty safe to assume with that kind of announcement that Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack and the DLC packs that will be added into that service will be done on a case-by-case basis. And maybe if we ever get it for like a Mario Party Superstars, they throw something like that into the expansion pack to help build the value. But with mainline AAA standalone games like Xenoblade 3 and larger adventure games like even Zelda Breath of the Wild 2, when we expect that to launch and probably get future supported DLC like we saw happen with the first game in 2023, I do think that we'll be talking about individual purchases, not just something that is thrown into the expansion pack, which really does make sense, unless if they do a revolving door type of strategy where certain DLC packs eventually fall out of the expansion pack over the course of time, like maybe the Animal Crossing one gets phased out first since that was added in first, and then you see kind of like that four to 5 different DLC packs all included at the same time, but they're kind of slowly changing over the course of time with new game releases. I could see something like that being in the conversation, but this $29.99 standalone price does have some people talking online, kind of giving Nintendo some hate with this decision, saying they already have day one, wave 1 content ready to go when the game drops, and it's like, are you just charging us more? But I do think that a future roadmap for a game that will be supported through the end of 2023 is a very nice thing to see when it releases. And this is not a game that is light on content, to be clear. You are going to go 60 plus hours in easy just getting through the main story, besides all of the future roadmap updates that they have planned for it. So I'm not going to talk about this one being like one of those Nintendo sports titles releases that gets launched extremely light on content, and then you're going to slowly get updates that are drip fed into the game to make it the full completed experience. That is not what they are doing with Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and it's already a full package at release on retail shelves at $60. And then you know that if you're a hardcore fan, you can pay that $29.99 price and have all of the waves that will come over the next year and a half thrown in for that. Now, yes, because this isn't part of the expansion pack and it's not just included DLC, I would like to see individual prices for these DLCs personally, because you might only be interested in like that new story element and not really those other battle challenge modes. So there is some controversy around that. I don't think it's a huge deal. $29.99 for 4 different waves of DLC isn't a bad price, but you can argue it would have been nice to see them thrown in as standalone DLC options for like that $7.99 or even $9.99, which makes it more worth it to, of course, get the bundle. But if you don't want all of them, you don't have to. So I can definitely see some of the critiques with how Nintendo's doing this, but I do think that it's going to be a very hyped season for Xenoblade fans. I definitely intend to get more into the series after this game releases, and I'm glad that we now know to expect probably the mainline AAA titles going forward aren't just going to have all of their future content and DLC that they have planned just thrown in automatically to the expansion pack, which was a big question up to this point in time that I was wondering if Nintendo would stick to or not. I want to hear from you guys at this point in the video, both the stories we talked about today. What do you think about the N64 controller stock situation now that it seems like it's getting restocked more frequently? Or are you going to try to pick one up? Have you already secured one and you're happy with your purchase? And do you think we do need to definitely see button remapping available in the N64 NSO app? And then definitely share with me where your hype levels fall for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 after this direct presentation. What were some of the highlights of this event for you? Are you excited that we have that expansion pass already outlined and available for the $29.99 price at launch? Are you surprised that Nintendo's not throwing that into the expansion pack? Is that something that you were more expecting? And do you think with future AAA Nintendo games like the Zeldas and Marios of the world that come out later on will have their DLC thrown into the expansion pack? Or do you think that it's maybe just some of those one-off first-party Nintendo games that will ultimately get them supported, especially the older titles? So regardless of your thoughts and feelings on everything we talked about today, I do look forward to hearing from you all in the comments down below before you leave the video, as I do look forward to getting a back and forth conversation started with you all around these topics. Go watch yesterday's video next if you haven't already, where we discuss some very unfortunate news for the potential of Tony Hawk 3+4 remake and a large discussion around Nintendo Direct and more mounting evidence that is appearing online suggesting that we should be getting the presentation, full mainline presentation, next week. Also make sure you like, subscribe, turn on your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.